Hey guys, welcome to my lifting series where I record every single set and rep that I possibly can. This is week 2, day 2 of my MyoMax hypertrophy program. You guys can get it down in the description for 10 bucks. But honestly, you guys don't need it whatsoever because I record all my lifting. So if you guys want to follow along, you can. The only benefit is that, you can like track your own progress and write in your own notes and, all that jazz. But anyway, this is a leg day, lower body day. So I'm starting with the hack squat machine, or I guess it's called a V squat machine. I'm deciding, I ran this last week and it felt okay, but I was kind of being like conformed to the machine because my back was against here, how it's like kind of supposed to go. But I've seen people do it the other way, and I received a comment when you guys stated that I should try it the other way, and I just did, and I liked it a lot more. The only issue is that my face is like being squished against the pad. The gym that I used to work in like a year ago or 2 years ago or something, it had like an extra attachment right here, so that's where your shoulders would go, and then your face wouldn't be squished. So this one's not really built for it, but I still find that I like it a lot more because for whatever reason, facing towards the machine instead of like away from it, like it's built, just feels way better for my specific anatomy. Maybe you guys are the same, maybe you're not. However, it works a lot better for me because I've spoken about my femurs being a little bit long in the past and how, traditional squats, like a high bar squat, just doesn't feel like super great, or front squat doesn't feel super great. So this one kind of allows the machine to conform to your body instead of your body conforming to the machine in this regard. So anyway, let's get to the first set. After looking at the footage, me doing it that way, it looks so freaking goofy. I mean, it looks like I'm being suffocated or something. Like I'm struggling to breathe while performing squats. And also, it's like more challenging to hit depth based off of like how the machine curves and whatnot. But I mean, I do think that would count as depth. I was going like slightly below 90, but if I were facing the other way, I would definitely be going deeper and it would be involving more quads. But honestly, doing it last week kind of beat up my knees a little bit. I don't know if you guys are the same way when you like do the machine, how it's built. Anyway, I'm going to continue it because if you look at it, I mean, I should have added 90 pounds and I'm getting the same amount of reps with, relative ease. So I think that for now, it's going to be, I'm going to keep doing it this way, at least for today. Then I'll reevaluate and see if I want to flip around again. But you can't deny how much weight you can put up, and I'm sure that you are the same. You can definitely do more weight when you flip around in the machine, probably because you're involving more glutes when you're doing it, because you're having that hip hinge. You're getting more of a hip hinge in the movement. So I'm gonna try setting my feet before I do it. I think that will help the overall movement. I feel like I may have been able to get a couple more reps there, but since I'm still locking on the form, I think it's okay that I got 10 instead of like 12. Another thing is I have a towel on the actual thing because my face is being like kind of flattened to get some shade. I'm trying to prevent all the gross germs that you find in the gym. You know, you never know what you're gonna get here. Okay, so I reviewed the footage one final time just to see my form was better because I purposefully went deeper on that set, and I do think that my form was better. I definitely got a bit more depth and I felt it more in my quads, but guys, I can't get over how goofy the freaking how goofy it looks. It looks like I'm literally suffocating and dying while I do the squats. But you know, it may look that way, but it actually doesn't feel that way. I actually feel like more relaxed because my eyes are closed. But I think I'm gonna swap back to the other. I'm gonna, you know, flip my body around for next week because I just can't get over how it looks. If this were the machine that I had at the gym that I worked at, where it had that, you know, extra attachment on the ends and it was built for doing it facing this way, then I would definitely choose that. So if you guys have access to a machine like that, then please give it a shot and try facing in that direction, because I think that you're gonna end up liking it. However, I just can't get over how it looks. So anyway, let's do one more set. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on. We're going to be doing some barbell RDLs next. An even harder exercise. Let's get after it. All right, so up next, I got the barbell Romanian deadlift, and I just like to quickly highlight why I'm doing a Romanian deadlift instead of a conventional deadlift. Well, the reason is that a conventional deadlift involves more knee flexion, and so you're going to be using your quads a lot more while you're doing the lift to a greater degree, versus the Romanian deadlift involves very minimal knee flexion. So you know, you're almost keeping your knee in the same position the whole time. At least you're trying to. So you're only really bending at the hips. And what that does is it basically takes the quads out of the movement almost entirely, and shifts the emphasis more onto the hamstrings and glutes. And it especially involves the glutes because you're doing a hip thrust and a hip hinge when you're bringing the weight up, and then the hamstrings are working almost isometrically to make sure that the weight is being stabilized as you go down. And it's providing a great stretch on the hamstrings, which we know a way to stretch is almost everything when it comes to lifting. I mean, when it comes to hypertrophy, that is. I mean, I'll take that back. It's not everything, but it's a huge thing that you shouldn't be skipping out on. Whenever you can get a way to stretch, you should, because it's been proven to elicit about 10 to 15% more growth overall, which, you know, may not sound like a lot when you're just writing out on a paper or something, but long term, that's a huge amount. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight that. And the reason why I'm choosing to minimize quad activation is because I really want to accentuate the hamstring and glute growth from this movement, and that's why I included like a hack squat, or the V squat rather, before it, so that we already got some growth. I'm going up 20 pounds from 225 to 245. Let's see how it goes. Okay, I got 8 there, which is the same metrics as last time. I got on the first set, I got 8. In fact, for all 3 sets last time, I got 8, but the guy with 225 instead of 245. So that's instantly initiating progressive overload. And the fact that my form was pretty similar to last week's, I think that it's just a clear progression in my eyes. Another aspect of this lift that I think shouldn't be like skipped over is your spine position. Your spine you should try and keep your spine neutral. A little bit of bending is okay, but it shouldn't like get out of whack. You know, I have like a slight bend in my spine while I'm doing most of these reps. However, I'm not letting my back round to a large degree. That's where you're gonna kind of get some leaks in the engine, so to speak. Like when you're doing a lift like this, you want the intra-abdominal pressure to try and maintain that neutral spine. And when you start to lose that pressure, then you get kind of leaks in the house. You know what I mean? Like you start to leak power through, and then that's what's gonna snap your shit up, to be honest. That's one thing. And then you also don't want to be like completely extending your quad and locking out your knees, because that can lead to some issues as well. So I like to keep like a slight bend in my knee, but obviously we're not doing the conventional deadlift, so I'm not bending my knee entirely, and I'm also not letting the bar completely hit the ground, because when it hits the ground, then you're also losing some of that rhythm, some of the momentum that you're building up, and the force output is being completely gone. Once you set it all the way on the ground, the only thing left is maybe you got some slack in the bar that you're tugging, but you know, there's no more gravity pulling the weight down to the floor. So you're losing a lot of that tension that you're trying to accumulate. And that's why I think that a conventional deadlift is more suited towards like strength gains and stuff like that, and powerlifting. And you know, that's why it's a powerlifting exercise. And that's always been like a battle as old as the term deadlift, Romanian deadlift, has been coined. Is, you know, people like to say that it's great for like muscle growth, blah blah blah, it's great for strength gain, it's like the king of all exercises. Yes, I think that it's a phenomenal exercise because it trains so many muscles at once. However, I don't think that it's the best exercise for growth, not by a long shot, because you're losing a lot of the tension, and it's more built for like low reps. Okay. Enough diddle dawdling. If you guys happen to not like the Romanian deadlift, especially the barbell variation, I'll propose another like alternative exercise that I almost put into my MyoMax program, and something that you could, if you're running the program, you could sub this exercise out for this exercise. And what it is the good morning. So, you know, whether you do it with a barbell, like a free weight barbell, or a Smith machine, or, you know, you could do it like in that V squat machine like I just did. You could totally do it there too. It worked very, very well there. You can do it in so many different ways, but that mimics, it's the same exact movement. It's just that one involves some axial loading. So you're loading up your spine a bit while you're doing the lift. You know, so kind of pick your poison. This one, it involves some grip strength and you know, you're holding the weight and lowering it, versus the good morning, you have the weight on your back and you're lowering it, but it's the same movement at the end of the day, really. And in fact, if your grip strength is low and you don't have straps, then maybe it would be a better alternative for the posterior chain of your lower body. Anyway, let's wrap these suckers up, shall we? All right, next up, I'm getting into the barbell hip thrusts. I did these last week as well, and it's going to continue like this for the whole program. I'm keeping these suckers in for sure, but I am going up from 2 sets to 3 sets today so that we get some more glute and hamstring growth, because we're going from 14 sets in week 1 to now 15 in week 2. Something that I wanted to highlight about the hip thrust is, you know, I'll stay with this like these form tidbits, is with this one, it is also working very, very similar muscles to the barbell RDL, but it's working the glutes to a greater degree. This is a tried and true glute exercise, and it's probably one of the best exercises that you can possibly do for your glutes. And that's because it's taking everything out of, you know, what we're doing with the RDL except the hip hinge. So it's just all about that hip thrust, that hip hinge, and just getting that gluteus maximus activation. So it's mainly focusing on the glute max. We're also getting like hamstrings and quads, but it's to a lesser extent for sure. And my main cue that I'm trying to do is trying to keep my knees at about a 90 degree at the top, and then I'm trying to even out my pelvis with my spine. So I'm trying to keep all that neutral at the top to ensure that I'm getting that full range of motion and that full contraction with my glutes. I'm going up like 40 pounds today, because when I used to do barbell hip thrusts in the past, this is the weight that I would do. And I only took a step back from that because I hadn't done them in a very, very long time. So I was just kind of working my way into it. But, you know, I believe that last week was relatively easy. So this week, I'm just going to send it. I'm going to go for it. Hopefully my form doesn't look too bad. Okay, so that was the set, but now I'm gonna do some rest pause repetitions. I got 10 with relative ease. It really wasn't nearly as challenging as I thought it was gonna be. I thought it was gonna be difficult because I went up 40 pounds, but guys, that's the power of the glutes. You can't underestimate them. It's some of the strongest skeletal muscles in the human body. Okay, that was tough, but a good set nonetheless. It's especially tough because we just finished off like a pretty challenging 3 sets of, not only we did 3 sets of the hack squat, but also 3 sets of the barbell RDL. Then we're getting straight into hip thrusts. It's kind of a difficult progression here. However, after we're done with 2 more sets of this, it's gonna get a whole of a lot easier, because the remaining exercises are single joint machine work. Not all of it is single joint machine. I think we got like machine, sorry, I'm blinking. Machine leg press, which is obviously a multi-joint exercise, but you know, it's not to like the fullest extent of, you know, a squat or something like that. It's much more minimal, and especially doing machine variation, it's much easier. So I think that a lot of people tend to overcomplicate their glute work. Like they'll include, you know, 4 sets of hip thrusts, and then 3 sets of the abduction adduction machine, and then, you know, they'll have like either doing like a glute kickback machine or like a cable kickback, and then they'll have like squats in there and deadlifts and like all that jazz, to like try and isolate each and every compartment of the glute to get that shelf from the side and, you know, whatever. However, I like to stick to the basics. I think that doing, you know, a hip hinge and then a squat is gonna get you 90% of the way there, and everything else is just kind of like icing on the cake. But guys, you can get too much icing on that cake. Let me tell you, you can batter it up way too much, because the more things you add, especially if they're unnecessary, the more problems you're gonna be running into later down the road, because at a certain point, your recovery is gonna hit, and whether it's not hitting your glutes directly, it may interfere with the growth of other muscle parts. So like, imagine you throw all your, you know, you put all your ducks in a row just for like glute training, and then you sprinkle in a few here and there. If you are putting too much emphasis on one thing, your glutes, then that's going to cause your recovery to be all eaten up by the glute activity, and then you're not going to have any to spare for like your arms and your chest and stuff like that. And you know, if you program it properly, then you can totally do that. But if you're programming everything, you know, equally, and then you're adding in a bunch of glute work on top, then you may run into some problems later down the road, and then you're going to end up, you know, what is it, like a jack of all trades is a master of none. It's kind of like that, but you're, you know, it's with lifting. So that's kind of how I think about it. And I know that I am doing a lot of volume for the glutes, but I don't think that I'm doing too much. Like, for example, I have the deadlift variation, and then the hip thrust, and then a squat. I got the trio, the big 3 there, and I don't have anything else. You know, I'm not doing any cable kickbacks. I'm not doing any abduction or adduction work. I'm not doing any, you know, like walking lunges, or what do they call it? The like monster walks, or like the crab walks with the band. I'm not doing anything like that, because I believe that the basics will get you 90 or 99% of the way there, and anything extra, you know, maybe throw it in for fun if you want, like on one of your off days. But I mean, you can do whatever you want, but that's just my take on it, to be honest. Anyway, let's get into set number dos. Numero dos here. Set number 2, while it's not complete, it's definitely a little bit harder. I made sure to make sure that I was getting that full range of motion, because I noticed in the first set I had a couple that were just kind of shy of that full range of motion. And glutes are like any other muscle. It deserves its fair due and its full range of motion. Okay. If you have access to a hip thrust machine, you know, the one where it has like a nylon or whatever belt, and it's plate loaded, please do that. I wouldn't even bother with the barbell if I had that variation. I love that variation. It's just always felt so much better to me, and the setup is much less. I think that that's what people always underestimate, is how long the setup is. If you're doing a bunch of movements where it requires like for instance, you're doing the plate loaded leg press and you're really strong, you're doing like 800 pounds or whatever. Do you know how many plates that requires? It's like 10 on each side or something nuts. Maybe even more, more like 12 plates on each side. That's a whole workout in of itself, just moving those plates around. It's a whole entire workout. And that's something that is going to eat in to how much strength and stamina and vitality you have for the whole course of the workout. If you're eating into it by setting up all these different machines and stuff, then guys, you're gonna be running into some performance issues for sure, you know? So right now I'm not really at the strength level to be worrying about that too much, but I'm still thinking about it a little bit. Like for instance, I went from doing the barbell Romanian deadlift to now the hip thrusts. And the reason why I program them back to back is because then I barely have to change the weights and I don't have to move from where I'm at. I can just stay here, strip off, all I stripped off was 20 pounds, then I was good to go. Imagine if I had something in between. I would do the barbell RDLs and then I would go and like do, you know, let's say I'm doing like a machine crunch or whatever, or like some calf raises, and then I come back to this later in like the latter half of the program or of the day, then I'd have to reset up all the weights and warm up, probably, you know, do like a quick warm up because I wasn't used to the movements, and then I'd have to crank it back out again. You know how much energy it takes just loading up these plates without one of those forklift things or whatever. It takes a ton of energy. So I just think that that's some like food for thought that maybe you guys should consider, especially if you're gonna write your own program. Anyway, I feel like I'm good to go. Honestly, a glute burn is the gnarliest because you feel that stuff for a while. I still kind of feel it burn. Ooh, that's a gnarly burn. I feel like I may have rushed those repetitions a slight bit, but what are you gonna do? It's just something that I'll keep a mental note of for next time. All right, let's move on. All right, up next, I'm attacking the machine leg press. And I really like including a leg press into my routine because due to the nature of how the machine is set up, you don't have to involve your core nearly as much, and you can more just focus on your legs. Like with a squat or even a machine squat like we were doing, a lot of the force production relies on that core stability component. If your core isn't secure, and that's one of the reasons why I use a belt, to reinforce that core stability. If it's not secure, then the tower is going to come crumbling down, so to speak. You're not going to be able to enact nearly as much force output, and it's going to shift the emphasis away from the legs, and then you're just going to be, you know, leaking power from the seams. So with a leg press variation, especially a machine one, it completely takes that core component out of the lift because you're like stationed into the machine with the pads and stuff, and then you can just focus on using your legs. And of course, it's a compound lift. You know, you're still using your hip joint and your knee joint. However, there's not as much hamstring and glute activation needed because it's really just focusing on that knee extension to lift the weight either away from you, or in this case, I'm lifting the chair away from the pad. So that's the reason why I programmed this. And it's just kind of like some extra volume without having to worry about all the other commotion going on. So anyway, I'm doing as many as I can. I'm going up from 210 to 240, so 30-pound jump, but it doesn't feel like 30 pounds. I'm shit like this. And then I'm doing some long length partials. No, you're good. Yeah, you're completely fine. Okay, let's get into some of those partials, okay? Even though I went up in weight like tremendously, 30 pounds or whatever, it didn't feel like it. It felt just the same. So I'm gonna do another set, and then next week we'll go up again for sure. The last thing I'll say about this lift today is your foot position also matters. When your toes are more pointed out, then it's going to allow a greater range of motion. In general, the further out you're pointed, it kind of shifts your femurs in that direction when it's inside of your hip joint, and that just allows for a greater range of motion for most people. Additionally, the higher your feet are on the pad, the more hamstring and glute you're going to be activating. The lower, the more quads you're going to be activating, and that just has to do with how your limbs are stacked when you're doing that kind of squat variation. So the lower they are, the more stacked your joints are going to be for your quads to have more of the emphasis and do more of the strength output. And when they're higher up, it forces your glutes to work a little bit harder, your hamstrings to work a little bit harder, because it's shifting the emphasis away from your quads. I tend to just choose whatever feels the most comfortable for me, and that tends to be like a mid-range. Okay, I got a few long length partials remaining. Ooh, geez. Those partials at the end are brutal for sure. It definitely adds to that tension being experienced on the quads. Anyway, up next I was going to do the prone hamstring curl, but it's being used right now, so I'm just going to skip on over to the leg extension. Even though it's not ideal, sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do, you know? Okay, I'm on the unilateral quad extension, and the reason why I'm calling it unilateral is because on this particular machine, you can do one leg at a time. However, I'm gonna do it bilaterally until, let me fix this, until I hit failure, then I'm gonna swap to unilaterally. You guys have been following along. It's kind of like how I did things with the incline bicep curls, where I did, you know, bilateral until failure, then I swapped to unilateral, because when you're doing one arm at a time or one leg at a time, you can kind of shift your focus onto it and kind of use more body language to lift the movement. And I think the same holds true with the quad extension machine. So that's what I'm doing. Let's get it. Oh, okay. Now down to unilateral. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Oh, frick. The burn was getting to me. What do I do, 5 on each and then 10 full range? Yeah, so that's exactly the same as I got last time. However, I went up 10 pounds. So I went from 50 on each leg to 60. At least, you know, that's what it says on here. I don't know if it's super accurate, but, you know, that is a 10-pound jump. So we're enacting progressive overload on some level just by doing that. A little form tidbit that I try and make sure that I do every single time. I have been guilty to forget in the past, but I'm leaning back as far as I can. So that means that I brought the pad as far back as it can go, the back support as far back as it can go, because the further your torso is from your knees, the more stretch you're going to be enacting upon your quads. I mean, just stand up and do this. That's as far back as your quad can go relative to your torso. And just by doing that, you'll feel it. It's a huge stretch placed upon the quads. So that's the type of logic that I'm using when doing this machine, is I'm trying to get as big of a stretch as I can get. And then same logic, or similar but different. At the top, I'm, you know, extending all the way until it's straight, so that I'm fully contracting the quad. And then I'm, you know, obviously controlling the weight. I'm not thrusting it around or anything. So I'm getting that peak contraction and then the largest stretch that it can get. And I think that that is ideal when it comes to this movement. If you're cutting the range of motion shy or short at any part of the range, whether it be the stretched or the contracted, you're definitely doing yourself a disservice, especially if you're doing that on the stretched position, like not going all the way down. That's worse. At least it seems to be worse. Okay, set number 2. Okay, now unilateral. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. Oh, all right. I know last time, I mentioned last time that I'm trying not to let it completely fall at the bottom while I'm doing, like, whichever one I'm using, I'm trying not to let the other one completely, let the machine just relax completely. I kind of gave up with this set, just with these 2 sets, just because it is tremendously more difficult to hold that isometric at the bottom while you're doing the other leg, especially when you've already done a full range of motion set. It's very challenging. So, I didn't do it that time, and I still feel like I got phenomenal stimulus. So I think I'm good. All right, next up, I'm finishing off probably the recorded portion of the workout with the prone hamstring curl. With this one, hold on, let me adjust it. I should have already adjusted it, my bad. We're doing 95, so same as last time. Honestly, last time I wasn't super happy with what I got, so I'm gonna try and enact the same. Let me check really quick what I do for, okay, I lowered it down to 50 for the drop set. I'm doing drop set here. Okay, so I got 95 for 13, and last time I did 12, and then I matched the drop set. So it is a PR, it is a personal record. I did enact progressive overload in that regard. However, towards the end of the drop set, I was slamming up the weight so much that the pad actually came off contact with the back of my heel. So it actually and that's something that I haven't done since I was a kid. When I first started lifting at the ripe age of 14, I believe I was either 13 or 14. I used to swing weights around all the time. I'd be doing a lat pull down with too much weight, and I just bring it down on the way up and get a little bit of air. And it's fun when you're a kid, but when you're older, it just seems kind of childish to me. So I'm not saying that, it's a bad thing that I did that or anything, but ideally I would have liked to control the weight a little bit more instead of throwing it around, because when you're throwing around the weight, that's a short stop to injury city, snap city, and just issues there down the road. Anyway, let's just get right into it. I don't really need to rest long for these sets. Fuck, maybe I did need some more rest time because I only got 10 again, which is not ideal. Ooh, well, at least I didn't swing it around in the last set. I'm definitely my hamstrings are gonna be fucking fried tomorrow. But that's the name of the game. We fry them and then we let them recover, right? Anyway, guys, that's gonna do it. I just have 2 sets of calves left. Let's see exactly what calf exercise I got. It's looking like I have the plate loaded calf raise and then the unilateral calf, the plate loaded seated and then the standing unilateral dumbbell calf raise. 2 sets and then 3. Like I've said before, calf exercises are kind of boring to film, kind of boring to watch. They're not the most entertaining. So I'm just gonna leave you guys here. I think this video has been long enough, but thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys stuck around until the end, you're a real one. Anyway, that concludes week 2, day 2. Have a great one. See you next time.